And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, another episode of Yankees and Gravy. Thanks for joining us. Last podcast, we were talking about how there's not much going on. I had wanted to be more active with the Yankees and Gravy episodes, but there was really nothing to talk about. I guess be careful what you wish for, because the last couple of days, there's been some action. Obviously, most notably, the acquisition of Pineda through a trade for Montero. Loesi, too. I mean, Loesi, you can't really knock Loesi. He's not like just an afterthought. We actually had some serious plans for him, but the main thing is Pineda for Montero. Everybody's making this out to be a no-brainer. Everybody's saying that this is a great thing for the Yankees. They had to do it, this and that. My gut is to say I agree with them. My gut is to say that this was the right move, and I still do think it's the right move. But to me, I don't know, man. I'm a little less sure about the fact that we, this should be a no-brainer, because Montero is going to be a beast. I mean, he was easily the best-rated offensive player in the Yankee farm system from an average and a power standpoint. And I think, the one thing you say is, yes, you want pitching over hitting as far as prospects goes, but the reality also is that I think Montero is a little bit more of a sure thing than this guy. You never know with these pitches. They can get an injury. He's not where he needs to be, and let's just say that too about Pineda. I mean, look at his record. We're still kind of banking on what we think he'll do. Yes, he's got all the tools. He's got the size. He's got the makeup. But you're talking about a guy who completely tailed off last year. You're talking about a guy who only has 2 real pitches. I do understand all the other side of it. Yes, he'll learn another pitch. Yes, the tail off last year was typical of rookie pitchers or whatever. And this guy is a 6'7" monster on the mound who's going to be an imposing figure in the league for a long time. So I guess you just got to trust your gut and wonder what's more important, the pitching or the offense right now? Because yes, Montero probably was never going to be the best defensive catcher, but we'll see. I'm glad we made the move. I think it speaks to a definite need that we have, but I'm just saying, I think you're going to be hearing about this guy Montero for a very long time, and he's going to put up very, very big numbers. And every time we see him come into town, every time we play the Mariners, we're going to have to look at him, and he's going to be a big-time player. That's all I'm saying. But I am happy about the move, and I'm glad we got him. Let's just approach it with a cautious optimism right now. Yankees also were able to avoid arbitration with Joba, Chamberlain, and Robertson. It's going to be interesting to see if Robertson can follow up what he did last year. I mean, that was an absolute beastly year. Hopefully, Chamberlain won't come into camp looking like a beast. I mean, I don't know if you saw him last year. He just looked like a monster. I mean, not in necessarily the best of ways. He definitely looked like he didn't turn down too many sandwiches in the offseason. The injury and stuff like that, who knows? I know the Tommy John surgery thing is supposed to... Many people have come back even better from Tommy John surgery. I don't know what his timetable is. I think it's going to be... He's not going to be ready for the start of the year. Hopefully by, quarter way through the season to midway through the season, he'll be ready to go. Joba Chamberlain is an interesting story, too. I mean, look at him. Yeah, he was not nearly as dominant as we thought he would be. But if you do look at the numbers... Career with the Yankees, he is 20-13 with a 3.7 ERA. Quietly, a very, very respectable set of numbers right there. You can't knock him. I mean, hopefully, we'll get into Hughes a little bit later, but that's one thing I think we really, really made a big mistake on. Chamberlain and Hughes both. They're relievers, they're starters, they're relievers again. They got innings rules, there's Joba rules. I think we played around with these guys too much, and I think you're still looking at 2 guys who have all the talent in the world, and look at them. They're still 25 years old. I mean, they still have all the potential in the world as well, but they've been around for like 3 years now, and we still have not been able to really find a consistent spot for them, and they've really never settled into that groove. I'm hoping that changes. We've definitely made mistakes with these guys, and I hope we kind of can just put them somewhere and leave them there and let them develop into what we think or know they can be, or at least find out what they could be. If you're going to have Joba be a reliever, just have him be a reliever, see what he's got. If he doesn't make it, he doesn't make it, or you trade him. Same with Hughes. I mean, I don't know where we're going with the starting rotation. We'll talk about that in a second, but we just got to get some consistency with these guys. Hughes speaking of, is also back on, and he just signed for $3.2 million. Also avoids arbitration. Actually got a $500,000 raise from last year, despite having an injury-riddled season. That's going to be very, very interesting to see where he ends up. There's talk of him kind of not always being in shape. There's also that talk about the velocity drop. It looked like he got it back a little bit last year, but we will see where that ends up, and that's going to be very interesting, which brings us to the rotation in general. Right now, it looks like CC Sabathia, Kuroda, Pineda, Nova, and then if you're going to go with the last name ending in A, you got to throw in Garcia. But we know what the four is. We know the CC, Kuroda, Pineda, and Nova are going to be the four starters. Then you have Burnett, Hughes, and Garcia. It's looking like Burnett is going to be the fifth starter. It's probably a no-brainer that Burnett's going to be the fifth starter. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, yeah, I know we paid this guy a lot. I know we invested a lot in him, but how many chances is this guy going to get? I mean, come on. I would just as soon get rid of this guy, pay some of his salary. I mean, he needs to be off the team, to be honest with you. I still want to know what that freaking black eye was. I think Jorge decked him, right? Must have. Somebody. I was like, probably not. It probably happened in a club somewhere. But the Brown Blazers said that, it definitely had to happen in-house, because otherwise it would have leaked out somewhere. If it happened on the street somewhere, we would know about it. It happened in the clubhouse, which is why we don't know about it, which is why Jorge Posada probably leaned into him with one. That was courtesy of the Brown Blazer. What about the Killer Bees? We looked at a thin rotation, and then we were expecting, I guess, between Loesi and the Killer Bees, somebody was going to step up and have to kind of take one of these rotation spots. Now it's almost like we have too many pitchers. Obviously a good problem to have. We're not littered with great pitches. We're optimistic about a lot of our pitches. I'm still going to say it. Beyond CC Sabathia, technically everybody is still a question mark. Chances are somebody will pan out, but I hope we don't start doing six-man rotation stuff. I hope we don't start fiddling with people. Let's just pick who we believe in, go with our gut, and insert a rotation and have them start 1 through 5 all year long. Let's learn from our mistakes. And what is that? What's going to happen with Hughes right now? Is Hughes going to go back to the bullpen right now? I'm telling you, if you put Hughes back in the bullpen, right, he's a reliever. And then you're just going to have to leave him there, and you're going to have to deal with it. And if that's the move you want to make, fine. That's the move you want to make. Then maybe, who knows, maybe he's not happy with that. Maybe he demands a trade, whatever. But I'm just saying, you can't just keep moving these guys around back and forth. You're screwing with world-class, young, talented arms here. Let's just not do that. But we'll see how that rotation looks. But I think we definitely fixed a couple of needs, and I definitely feel better about where we look from a pitching standpoint. Eduardo Nunez looks like he will be our utility defensive infielder. The only problem with that is he is probably the worst defensive player I've seen in my life based on last year. Now, you got to kind of believe he's a young, athletic guy with some hard work, with some practice. He'll probably be able to come around and be serviceable in the field. I don't think he'll ever be a defensive star, but I think we all know that he's around for his bat mainly. But between shortstop and third base, hopefully, they'll get those defensive kinks worked out. And like I said, he's young, and I think he'll be able to, because he is athletic enough, and I'm sure he could I'm sure the Yankee coaching staff could probably band-aid whatever's wrong with him in the field. And again, he's going to have to work hard at it, but I'm sure he'll do it. But he's going to be spelling A-Rod and Jeter, so he'll probably get some time at shortstop, probably get some time at third base, probably get a lot of time on the bench. It'll probably be exactly that. Well, actually, fourth. Let's break it down into a fourth, because he's also an outfielder, too. Very valuable guy to have around if he can catch the ball. He'll probably play a fourth in the outfield, a fourth at third, 1/4 at shortstop, and another fourth on the bench. So we'll look to see how his development goes. DH is an issue. Right now, it looks like Andrew Jones is the designated hitter that's going to be, in the lineup most of the time. Cashman's probably going to do something else. It looks like John Heyman is saying that Carlos Pena is also in the mix. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't excite me too much, but he'll probably be, he'll be a step up from Andrew Jones, that's for sure. They're also talking about the Matsui and the Damon. That's a nice romantic kind of vision that we might have, but I don't know. I say you leave that alone. I love those guys. Those guys were true Yankees in the way they pulled us through in 2009. But again, really, how many guys are you going to bring back again that are pushing 40 years old? I think you just let the memory live with what they did for us in 2009, and we move on, try to get younger, see what happens. I know, of course, I know they're going to end up somewhere, and I obviously wish them the best of luck, wish them nothing but the best. But I don't think we go back down that route. I don't know what you guys think about that. Catcher. Obviously, Russell Martin will be the starting catcher. Obviously, we did lose Montero. Never slated to be a defensive gem behind the dish, but we do have Romine and we do have Cervelli, and they will probably be competing for the number 2 job. I don't know if we're going to keep all 3, but the reality is that probably Cervelli should be the backup. Romine is the future. He's going to be the New York Yankee catcher for the next 15 years once he starts. Well, I shouldn't say 15. That's a long time for a catcher. The next 10 years, as soon as he gets called up and as soon as, the torch is passed. But right now, it's probably best for him to get enough reps in the minor leagues and play every day. Let Romine get the experience that he needs. And, if something happens to Cervelli or if something happens to Martin, obviously the depth chart moves up a little bit. But other than that, I think that he should probably stay down there. We should probably go with Cervelli and Martin one more year. Top 10 list, top 10 Yankee farm system disappointments. Guys who came up through the Yankee system and were slated to take over the league, but didn't necessarily pan out the way we thought they would. Number 10, Melky Cabrera, having a decent time over in Kansas City, doing well, but not quite the level of major leaguer that he was slated to be when he was coming up in the Yankee system. And he's also not a Yankee, so it's a disappointment. Brian Taylor, awful situation where we gave him $1 million in high school, and he got into a fight and dislocated his shoulder and was never, or tore cartilage in his shoulder. Whatever happened, he was never the same pitcher again. Number 8, Gerald Williams, good player throughout the years, but we thought he'd be more on the Bernie level than he actually was. Number 7, Brian Fisher, relief pitcher that we thought would be a lockdown closer, the post-Dave Righetti era, but I think the most saves he ever had was 14 and was out of the league in a couple of years. Didn't do nearly what we thought he would do. Number 6, Chuck Carey. Chuck Carey was a pitcher who had 5 pitches and could throw them all for strikes and get people out with them coming up. But when he was inserted into the rotation, he kind of choked and didn't really pan out. Number 5 is Pat Kelly. I would say he's probably a 4-tool player, minus the power. Just didn't have really the power, but could hit for average, great defensive player, could run, field, second base guy. We moved him to third because of... why did we move him to third? I don't remember. But we moved him to third base in the early 90s, and he just never really panned out to what we thought he would be. Number 4, Sterling Hitchcock. Good pitcher throughout the years. Definitely had a lot of good quality years, but he was supposed to be a monster, and he never really was dominant, and he wasn't a Yankee as well. Came up in that kind of like that Pettit era. Didn't really do it. Didn't do it for us. Hensley Mullins was supposed to be a slugger. I think in the late 80s, early 90s, he was coming up. Everybody was talking about him being just a beast at the plate, and nothing really came of that. He kicked around the league for a while, but never really panned out. Number 2, the slugger of all sluggers. This guy broke the record, was like the fastest person to like 11 home runs or something like that in history, and he shook up the league for about a month and a half. Kevin Moss, but then after that was nowhere to be found. Goodbye, Kevin. And then the all-time enigma. I mean, who knows what the hell happened with this guy. He was supposed to be basically a 5-tool player. He's basically supposed to be everything that Cano was with a great outfielder's glove. Ruben Rivera. Just a mess, head case. I think he's Mariano Rivera's cousin, isn't he? But he never panned out, never worked out, and then eventually ruining his complete reputation by stealing Derek Jeter's gloves out of his locker room. I guess to try to sell for memorabilia purposes or whatever. But yeah, that's my top 10 list of disappointing Yankee farmhands that never made it. Thanks for listening. Please check us out, Yankees and Gravy on Facebook, Yankees and Gravy on Twitter. What do we got? 4 or 5 weeks now, pitches and catches. Very pumped now, especially with the moves that we made. Can't wait to see it. It's going to be a great season. Again, thank you for listening.